Good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's City Council meeting for the date of, what is the date today, guys? 24th. Yeah, August 24th of 2015. If you'd please rise and stand for the singing of the national anthem. Thank you to the National Film Board of Canada for the images, and also to our very own voice choir for the rendition of O Canada here today. Now on with business. I obviously am not the mayor today, but I am in the deputy position. Bill should be here shortly. But I was looking for an adoption of the previous council meeting's minutes. Is there any objections? No? All right, then we will try to figure this out. Is there a motion? Okay. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. I would move the minutes of the City Council meeting held August 10th, 2015 be adopted.
Very good. Did anybody have any objections or see any omissions or mistakes that need to be corrected? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. One more. Nope, we're good. And so passes. All right, so now I'm looking for someone to make a motion for a meeting or adoption of the agenda as presented tonight. Councillor Logan.
Thank you. I'd move that the agenda be adopted.
So moved. Is everybody in concurrence with the agenda? If so, we will vote. Thank you very much, and that passes. All right, so now we move to the delegations part of our agenda. This is that time where anybody from the public can come on in and voice any concerns or anything that they want to talk to council about. It's open to the entire community. Everything except for anything that will be held in a public meeting later on today. Is there anybody from the gallery here that would like to speak to council here today? Come on forward. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks. I'll just recognize Councillor Thiessen stepping in the breach. My apologies, Council, for my tardiness, and my apologies to the public and the delegation. I see we have one group that wanted to come forward and let us know ahead of time in regards to a municipal reserve allocation. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mayor Given, and good evening, members of council. My name is Dave McRae. I'm the Land Use Planning Manager with ISL Engineering and Land Services here in Grand Prairie, and with me is Scott Rossler with Helix Engineering. The reason we're here tonight is to speak to an issue relating to the allocation of municipal reserve in the proposed West Green Outline Plan. Our concerns are documented in a letter that's been included in your agenda package, I believe starting page 13. And I'm not going to obviously read the letter in detail. I'll just sort of give you the Reader's Digest version of the concerns. So I'll touch on the key points. We submitted on behalf of Crosslink Holdings, the owners of the subject land, which is a quarter section on 116th Street north of 116th Avenue, adjacent to the Grand Prairie Airport. We've prepared a draft outline plan for that area for future commercial and industrial use. And in that draft outline plan, we had proposed that municipal reserve be allocated as or dedicated as cash in lieu. Because the city's MDP policy regarding municipal reserve requires land in all cases, this was an exception to that policy. So council concurrence or direction on the matter was required, and so administration brought that forward, and it was brought forward to the community development or community growth committee in mid-June. And at that time, the committee was in concurrence with our proposal. Then being the standard committee process, it came forward to council at the June 29th meeting, and council subsequently did not support the committee's motion, and it was defeated. And so by extension, council was telling us at the time that cash in lieu of reserve was not suitable in that instance. But the difficulty is that no direction was actually provided in terms of if land is required, what's it required for. So we're being faced with a bit of a vacuum there. And so we're in a process of having basically a motion on the matter, but no direction. So that's a bit of an issue. But there's a couple of concerns that we wanted to bring to council's attention. The first is regarding the process, because, and again, it was an oversight. We're not here to place blame on anybody by any stretch, but the process went through committee and then subsequently to council, but we were not aware that it was coming forward, so we didn't have an opportunity to speak to the matter at the time. And there's only one previous instance that we can recall where this process was this requirement for council direction on MR was used, and that was with the Trader Ridge Outline Plan, which is the quarter section north of Northridge Honda, that quarter north of 132nd Avenue, and that at that time was addressed by council in committee, so it was basically an in-camera discussion. So the irony is that we had a public process this time that we weren't a part of, but the alternative was an in-camera process that we wouldn't have access to anyway. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But so it speaks to the fact that the process for obtaining input on these issues is not optimal. There needs to be a better process for dealing with issues like this. Because in a way, it is a land issue. It's not a public document yet. So there are issues of sort of negotiation that should really be behind the scenes until it's ready to go public. So we had a concern with that. And the second issue that we have was actually with the decision itself, in that no direction was provided other than that cash was not acceptable. And I may add for council's information that it was a 4-4 tie vote, so it was defeated on a tie. And we're of course willing to discuss the need for land and what council might have in mind, but as far as we can tell, there really is no defined need. We're talking about 6.5 hectares of land, 10% of the gross area, and that's a lot of park space or open space, and you could question whether it's reasonable to require that kind of open space in an industrial context. But if there was a defined need, we're obviously more than willing to discuss that and figure out how to address it. But we don't have the benefit of that. All we have is a decision saying that cash is that cash isn't a desirable option. And so those were basically, in a nutshell, Your Worship, the concerns we wanted to bring forward. We would, obviously there's a process issue, and that's something that administration is going to have to figure out, because there are going to be more of these cases coming forward. But also from a technical perspective, we would respectfully request that council reconsider its decision, just because we don't really see the need for land in this situation. We're talking about 16 acres of land that could be, basically assessed for commercial industrial purposes in perpetuity, essentially. So there's definitely an economic advantage in the long term to this not being open space. But if there is a demand for some element of that, maybe the city does need a couple of acres for some public purpose, we're more than willing to discuss that. But at this point, we just don't have anywhere to go. So we're just, we just wanted to bring it forward. And in discussions with administration, we felt this was really the best venue for that, is to get it back on council's radar and open it up for discussion again. So thank you for your time, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thanks very much, gentlemen, and direct to the source. Certainly support that. Any questions for the delegation, council? Questions for the delegation? I don't see anybody ringing in, so it sounds like you've made your point, or as clear as it can be, and it'll be up to council. Now, typically, speaking of process, our delegation business, as you know, is typically at the end of our council agenda, and so that would be the point where council would pick up this matter and address it there. Again, I don't see anybody ringing in with any questions, so I think it's obviously as clear as can be in terms of the information that you provided to council. Anything else that you'd like to add?
I guess just from a personal note, Your Worship, if administration is faced with an issue, we'd be more than happy, I'd personally be more than happy to sit down with administration and try to figure out a better way, if you will, of dealing with issues like this. I would also add that there might be an advantage to maybe amending the MDP policy, maybe adding a reference to requirements under the Parks Master Plan or something like that, to provide some sort of tie-in, so it's not, potentially sort of an arbitrary decision, but maybe there's some might help guide those considerations. So I put those out there for thought.
One question does come to mind. In your experience, are parks the only thing that municipalities use MR for? Because a couple of times you made reference to specifically to green space, and I guess I appreciate the perspective that you shared. I wonder if perhaps that's being a little predictive of what the use might be.
There are other uses for it. I mean, obviously, in a residential context, school sites, neighborhood parks, that kind of thing. If there's a requirement for buffering, if there's a potentially incompatible use across across a property line, the opportunities to use MR for buffering purposes or trail corridors, that kind of thing is there. Or arguably, if there was a defined need for let's say an indoor public recreational facility, that kind of land or allocation would be entirely appropriate. But again, in this case, there is no defined need, so it's kind of difficult to predict. But there's also an opportunity, for example, if the city needed a couple of acres for a dog park, that kind of thing, that would also be an appropriate use for it. But again, we're in this case, it's 6.5 acres. Or 16 acres, 6.5 hectares. That's a big chunk of real estate. So a little can go a long way. So we're just looking for some balance in that regard.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah. Useful perspective. Even with skating, I don't see anybody else ringing in, and so this would be something we deal with as I said, at the end of the agenda with the delegation portion. So thanks very much for the presentation, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So I walked in the door. I heard Councillor Thiessen explaining the intent of the delegation business. Well done, Councillor Thiessen. I don't think you've heard me say it enough times. I can probably. So if there is anybody else that would like to come forward, this is the opportunity. You didn't have to let us know ahead of time. Come on down and have a seat. We do just ask that you introduce yourself, so our recording secretary makes sure that we get your name for the minutes. And welcome. Yeah, they're very sensitive, so you shouldn't have to worry about leaning in too much. It'll pick you up.
There's
There's three things. There's the sidewalk on 121st and Crystal Ridge.
Just one half a second, and I want you to be as comfortable as possible. Just remember to introduce yourself so we can remember who we're talking to.
I'm Nick Diesel.
Hi, Nick. Welcome.
There's a sidewalk on 121st Crystal Ridge Road that's all broken up and it fills up with water, and then in the wintertime it freezes. And I phoned June 19th. Nothing has been, I don't know if anything has been done. And then in the wintertime, my grandparents, their walkway gets covered in snow.
Are they, Nick? Are they on that same sidewalk? Is that same area?
Oh, sorry. They're in Mission Heights.
This is in Mission. Okay. Do you know the approximate address of that?
10317. It's like the very first 83rd Avenue. So like when you turn, their house is there. So each winter it gets filled up with snow, and then they have like a little sidewalk that goes from the corner to another driveway. I've shoveled it 6 times, and it keeps getting covered. So I don't know.
Okay. Absolutely. And so those are the 3 issues that you wanted to raise with us?
3.
Okay. I think, so as I just mentioned, the last delegation, we usually deal with the business that people bring to City Council at the end of our agenda. But I'm wondering if this is the type of thing that our staff might need to go and have a look at those areas to be able to report back to you on. I think that's probably what Council would ask our staff to do. So I wonder, Nick, if you, let's see, Councilor Thiessen may have a question for you. I think one thing that we'll have to do is make sure that we get some contact information so we can get back to you about some of the details on those. But Councilor Thiessen has a question for you.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for coming in tonight. Not so much a question, but more of a direction. Recently, when the City of Grand Prairie changed their snow removal policy, we have a program where you can sign up at our City Services Center in order, if your grandparents are old or elderly or disabled or whatnot, the city will actually send crews down to clear up the sidewalk and to clear up the driveway. They just have to go down in person and fill out an application form, and then they get put on a list, and then that's done as they plow the roads. So,
It's like the walkway.
yeah.
Going through there, there's 2 trees, and then there's a walkway.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think you mean like a park walkway or
So here's their driveway.
cut through. Okay.
And here's trees. Then here's a sidewalk. And here's trees.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, thank you very much. That clears it up for me, I guess.
There we go. Okay. Councilor McLean?
Thank you, Nick, for coming. This is why it's open process. And definitely before you leave, you need to name a number to someone on the side, Arlene or to David on the side. And you don't have to stay for the whole meeting. You can just go over to the side and give them name and number, and they'll get a hold of you. I think to let them know so it doesn't don't have to stay for the whole meeting. They'll,
I actually have a picture of the sidewalk.
and
Okay. So, but before you go, I'm going to point out David Olinger there in the mustache. If you would leave him your name and phone number so that we can ask our staff to have a look. We'll follow up with you to get in touch to specifically identify those spots that you had concerns about, and then we can find out some of the details and get a response back to you, okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming. Was there anyone else that wanted to come up to address council this evening? No. I don't see anybody else rushing to the front. But as Councillor Thiessen said, this is an opportunity that we have at every regular city council meeting. And so if there isn't anyone else coming forward tonight, then we'll close the delegation portion of our agenda and we'll move on to our reports items, starting with 6.1, a land use bylaw amendment. And I'll look to administration for an introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Given. The purpose of this report is text amendments to the land use bylaw, the South Avondale Area Redevelopment Plan, and the VLA Montrose Area Redevelopment Plan. Discrepancies were discovered between the architectural controls in these plans and the Alberta Building Code for window-to-wall ratios. So administration's recommendation is that bylaw C1260-43, being an amendment to the land use bylaw, be given first reading. That bylaw C1202C, being an amendment to the South Avondale Redevelopment Plan, be given first reading, that bylaw 1228B, being an amendment to the VLA Montrose Area Redevelopment Plan, be given first reading, and that Monday, September 21st, 2015 at 6:30 p.m. in City Council chambers be established as the date, time, and location for the public hearings.
Thanks very much, Ms. Downing. Look to Council. Councillor Rice.
Ready to make the motion?
Absolutely.
Okay, I move that first reading of bylaw C 1260-43, an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. No discussion or debate on first reading. I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Rice.
I move that first reading be given to bylaw C 1202-C, an amendment to the South Avondale redevelopment plan.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Again, first reading, so no discussion or debate. I'll call for the vote on that. Land use bylaw. Thank you. That motion carries. Of course, that was the South Avondale Area Redevelopment Plan. And Councillor Rice.
I move first reading of bylaw C 1228-B. It's an amendment to the VLA Montrose Area Redevelopment Plan.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Again, no discussion or debate on a first reading, so I'll call for the vote. Councillor Rice, when would you like to do those?
I move that Monday, September 21st, 2015 at 6:30 p.m. in City Council chambers be established as the date, time, and location for the public hearings.
Okay. That one we can have a discussion debate on if anybody wanted to. Any discussion as to date, time, and location proposed? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I believe that handles all of our reports items and would take us right into committee business. Starting with 7.1, the Community Growth Committee from August 11th. I see that Councillor O'Toole wasn't here, and next on the list, I think, was Councillor Thiessen for committee members. So we're just looking for the motion to adopt that set of minutes from August 11th. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Bill. I move that Council approve the minutes or receive the minutes of the Community Growth Committee held at Tuesday, August 11th, 2015.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen, and thanks for you've stepped in for me, and you've stepped in for Councillor O'Toole. Thanks very much.
Seems to be that kind of day.
Versatile guy, that's right. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Does it look like they reflect what happened at the meeting? They must. I don't see anybody ringing in, so we'll call for the vote to adopt them. Thank you. And that motion carries. I was just giving you the chance, Councillor Thiessen. I was going to put you on the spot and say anything you wanted to highlight from that set of minutes. It looks like you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
So there's a few things that the committee tackled that day. We had a few development permits that passed through, some variances on billboards over by the golf course that we approved. Variance for shop and office, which was, I think, an excellent move as far as infill goes, especially in our commercial industrial sector in the north. And then we had a couple rejections, but a little bit of procedures that we dealt with afterwards and how we're going to deal with, recommendations that are in the negative. So all in all, it was a tidy day worth of work and long overdue.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. We'll move on to 7.2, the Community Living Committee. That one, Councillor Radburn. It's good to see that there's somebody here that's where they're supposed to be. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I would move Council receive the minutes of the Community Living Committee meeting held Tuesday, August 11th, 2015.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Anything we need to amend before we adopt them? Seeing nothing, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Okay, so Mayor Gibbon, what I would like to do is provide a bit of a context. Most of Council was at this committee meeting. But for those who are here and those who may be watching, I'd like to provide a bit of a context of the discussions before we actually get to the two motions, if that's okay with you. So this was an aquatics update report, and actually administration brought forth some information and some recommendations. One of the recommendations was to look at allocating or referring to budget an expenditure of $1,070,000 for the addition of a movable floor to the 50-meter pool at Eastlink Center. This movable floor would actually increase usage and thus revenues. It allows us to develop shallow water spaces for lessons, for other programming, aerobic seniors, mums and tots, a variety of potential uses that right now we're not able to meet. Committee, as you'll see in the first motion, actually has chose to make a motion to amend this year's budget rather than wait for budget deliberations. The second part was asking for some guidance in terms of some more specificity with respect to costing of what might happen at the Bear Creek Outdoor Pool. As we looked at that one, the motion that didn't come to council today, but I'm going to read it to you from the minutes just to give, so you understand kind of where that one's going. What really the discussion that we had as a committee was that we tried to frame a motion that gave some guidance to the administration in terms of what kind of estimated costs or what we wanted. So the motion that was passed was that committee direct administration to bring back a report to council committee of the whole with up to 4 design concepts not to exceed $3 million regarding the redevelopment of the Bear Creek outdoor pool space, and to include a coverage gathering space and water features that would target a larger demographic for summer respite. So that goes straight to administration, and they will bring a report back on that part of the aquatics puzzle, shall we say, prior to our fall budget deliberations. And depending upon what committee chooses to do there, it could be referred to budget or whatever. Finally, another recommendation was that we maintain the status quo for the Leisure Center project. We are $4 million, given the information that we were provided, we're about $4 million short in the budget with respect to that project. That information also identified that we could actually rebuild new on that site for maybe a little less, but about the same kind of money as trying to upgrade, replace things, fix it up. But at the end of the day, really, we are, to do that work, we're $4 million short. So committee actually left that alone. The thinking of administration at that time was that that we are in the midst of a regional recreation master plan, and that information garnered by the consultant doing that work would be useful information to inform us as we look at the Leisure Center again in the future. And that would be done, I think, next year sometime. Gary, is that correct? Next year sometime. So that gives you a bit of a context to the report and to the overview. So I will proceed now and proceed with the motions and let the discussion and debate begin. So,
Councillor Urban, I saw Councillor Rice is in the queue, and maybe there are a couple of interlocking motions, and I know at committee level we had a significant amount of discussion about what should come first and which parts. So fair enough if council members want to have a bit of a discussion or dialogue about the entire issue. And so Councillor Rice. And sorry, Councillor, just keeping in mind that we don't have a motion, so let's try to...
I just want clarification. You made the statement that it was presented that you could replace a leisure center for roughly the same or less. Does that mean swimming pool, skating rink, all that, or is that just like what exactly? Replace it with what, I guess is.
Yes. Councillor Edburn, your microphone is not on. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, replace what is there now.
So swimming pool, skating rink?
Well,
leave just the
it's not a skating rink.
The aquatics. Okay.
The aquatics part and the change rooms.
Yeah.
And even the fitness facility. We had a small fitness facility there.
Good.
Doesn't include.
We had some problems trying to combine a pool and an ice surface, and so I'm glad that you're not going that route again.
Yeah, and we're not changing the use of. At this point, it would remain a indoor soccer facility.
Yeah. Okay.
What you knew of was the old arena. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor McLean.
Anything else?
Given, I just had a question. If we could change the recommendations from the 4 million to first and the million, because it's all about we're going to be spending money, and I just find this. Maybe I'm wrong on asking that, but I find we want to spend $1.70 million on fixing a problem, but then we'll let go of the 4 million, which we know where that's going to come from. I'm just wondering if we could change the.
Just a request to change the order, and there was some discussion about that at the committee about what that's chicken or egg and which flavor. But I think fair enough. The point being, let's think about reducing the budget first potentially, and then changing the budget is what I'm hearing you say. Right? Have that decision be made first before considering the second. And I don't see a problem with that. Yeah.
Okay.
At the will of council. I'm happy to deal with them in that order. That may affect some people's decision. So, Councillor Redburn, if there aren't any other questions at this point on sort of the process of the recommendations, then I'll ask you to deal with the second of the two motions that arose from the committee.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that council approve amending the budget to reflect the removal of the amount of $4 million from the Leisure Centre renovation project. Ken can help me with this, but I believe that we have $10 million in that budget now. 2 million of MSI, 4 million of capital tax, and 4 million of borrowing. And so this just gives an amount, and then I guess finance can decide where actually the money comes from, but it in essence reduces our budget for Leisure Centre by 4 million. Ken, is that?
Yeah, I'll ask Mr. Anderson just to address that if there's any additional detail.
Mayor, given it's actually $5 million for the borrowing, the total budget is $11 million.
Okay, thank you.
The other amounts, though, were correct, the 2 million of MSI and the 4 million of capital tax. Okay. Okay, so thanks very much, Councillor Redburn. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Bill. Actually, just a question for Ken with administration. When we pull the $4 million out of the Leisure Centre renovation project, would that be earmarked to an aquatics fund, or would it just go back into general revenue?
Mr. Anderson?
Mayor, given at this point, the $4 million would come out, the $1 million would go to the East Link for the floor, and the $3 million would be set aside for the Bear Creek pool design ideas that will come forward from administration. So it won't go back into general revenue at all. It's just be assigned to different capital projects.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Rice.
It relates to the leisure center, so there would be 6 million left, 7 million left in that budget.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes, that's correct. There would be $2 million in MSI and $5 million in borrowing.
So how would that change the scope of the project? Or did the committee discuss that?
I think it would be fair to say that at that budget amount, the project as currently conceived wouldn't go ahead. And I think at the committee level, the discussion was that we would have that money set aside essentially in that project to support whatever recommendations may come out of the Regional Recreation Master Plan. So the report said to replace the building, fix the building, we're looking at 14 million. This would leave 7 in the budget earmarked for Leisure Centre.
And if I might add, Mayor Given, I think Helen, in essence, we were saying that if we wanted to at some point proceed with the Leisure Centre project, we would have to add funding to that project, for that project.
Councillor Terrence.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I think it's useful to clarify that of that 7 million, only $2 million is actually earmarked. That's MSI funding or whatever it ends up being, but the additional 5 million hasn't been borrowed yet. So it's really just $2 million would be set aside for the Leisure Centre project.
Yeah, that's correct. Councillor Tarrant, the other $5 million is borrowing that the city is debt that the city will not take on until a project goes forward. Absolutely. Anyone else in the queue for discussion debate? Councillor McLean.
The motion made already. We're discussing the motion. Yeah, that's right. I was just going to say that I remember my first term in council, this project would have been about $5 to $7 million, but it's delayed, let the East Link Center go, and it was reviewed and looked at, and years go by, and now we know the cost to refix it and stuff they found is going to be $14 million. So by doing this, technically, it's dead. as Councilor Radburn was saying, that if we want to do it, we're going to have to open up and get more money of the taxpayers' money. So, in saying that, we delayed to watch other things happen, and costs have escalated. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor McLean. I would encourage council to support the motion as it's been put forward. And just in terms of a bit of a response to the point that Councilor McLean made, when council originally considered the Leisure Centre project, that was prior to any of the destructive testing, which was the process that really revealed the true costs of renovating that facility. And in absence of having done that, prior to having done that destructive testing, it wasn't possible to know that there would be an additional $4 million. Fair enough, I think, comment that over years there's an increase in inflationary costs, absolutely. But I want to recognize that I think this council, when it approved the project, thought it was going to go ahead until the building was opened up and the destructive testing revealed exactly in how bad a shape the structure was. That aside, I think that this is a prudent approach because it demonstrates that council is still interested in additional aquatics space and allows us an opportunity to work with our partners in the region to identify what is the best aquatic space for the region. And at the same time, if this motion goes forward, it allows us to meet some of the other aquatics needs in the community on a more immediate basis that will address gaps and shortfalls, I think, in the way we're currently meeting the need. Other discussion or debate? Councilor Radburn?
Yeah, just very quickly, I guess the other thing it provides some flexibility that if we receive cost estimates and if we're comfortable with what we're getting for the money, then it gives us some flexibility to pursue that project. It doesn't ensure that we're going to do that project. That would be for looking at what we want and then ultimately a vote of council before we proceeded. But at least it would provide some flexibility for us to pursue that if it was the will of council.
Thanks, Councilor Radburn. Any further discussion or debate? Okay, I don't see anybody in the queue, so I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councilor Radburn?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council approve amending the budget to allocate the amount of $1,070,000 in funding for the addition of a movable floor to the 50-meter pool at the Eastlink Center. And I don't think I provided a bit of a context for that already, so we'll just proceed with this debate.
Absolutely. Discussion and debate. Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I'm glad to see it as normal, but we know the money's going to be used for aquatic, not necessarily another swimming pool area. But the help with this part is we do know in Eastlink there's efficiency with little kids. It's over their, if they get in the water, it's over their head. Wherever they go in Eastlink, it is if they're going into the pools, either one. So I think this is an opportunity to enhance that and oversight. And so I'd be voting for it.
Thanks, Councilor McLean. Councilor Rice.
So this center isn't that old. I guess I can't believe that we're enhancing it before it's even up and running successfully, number one. And number two, it's restricting its hours. We're going to enhance a building with the hours cut down. Sorry, the math isn't working for me.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Gavin. I see where Councilor Rice is going, but the hours were not as much. I'm sure Director Gary Rocks will speak to it. It was on the weekends, later in the evenings, and it wasn't restricted for children to actually go to the venue. The hours that were restricted, most children are probably going to be home by that time. Gary, if you can maybe speak to that.
Director Roth.
Your Worship, certainly the hours were times of day at the end of the day, at the end of the evenings where the aquatics area is closing half an hour earlier, and Sunday mornings where the aquatics area won't be open as early in the morning. And those were, low usage time frames. The addition of the movable floor will enable us to add more children's programming, as has been already said, to daytime hours that the facility is already open.
Thanks very much, Director Roth. And I guess my perspective that I had on it was that in terms of hockey rinks, we all know that the prime time is where everybody wants to be on the ice, and that the off hours are you have empty ice. I see the movable floor as essentially creating more prime time in the Eastlink Center. So there'll be more physical space where youth programming can happen at the times of day where youth and families are there and active. I certainly support the motion. I can speak from family experience of my own wife just this past Thursday staying up till midnight so that she could register for children's aquatics lessons because she knew if she didn't stay up that late, it was likely that she wouldn't get them because supply is so constrained. My belief and understanding is that this will enable us to essentially remove those limits on those constraints on the supply because right now that limit is the amount of space available in the 25-meter pool. And this will essentially give us an entire new shallow depth pool when we need it, while not impacting our ability to host FINA-approved aquatics races. So I think it really meets the intent of the facility as intended. Councillor Tarrant?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll just add to your comments that this was one of the initiatives that came out of the business planning process that the Eastlink Centers just went through. And in order to, looking at the business plan and creating, bit more usage of the space and better utilization, this was one of the ways to enhance that. And also, it will assist with the revenues. That will create more revenue-generating opportunities by having the floor. So, for that reason, I will be strongly supporting this.
Councillor Rice?
My question is to Mr. Anderson. Do we have what the per capita subsidization of this facility is now prior to this motion?
Mr. Anderson?
Mayor, given Director Roth may have that answer.
Mr. Roth? Not currently. So, fair enough question, Councillor Rice. Unfortunately, not at hand. Councillor Thiessen?
Thank you, Mayor Bill. I'm going to speak in favor to the motion on the table, but I do have a question, and then I'll get to why I guess I'm speaking favorably. I guess what we were told at the committee level is that the movable floor is a vertical moving floor. Originally, I thought it was a diagonal, and now this is a vertical moving floor. So as it's already been stated around the council tables, it doesn't just open up the opportunities to have more programming and more kids swimming and in the pools, but also creates future opportunities and potential revenue generations outside of the current operating hours as well, like teen parties and stuff like that we could add into that. What we're told at the committee level, though, is that it would take about 6 months from the time that we ordered their movable floor to be shipped from Europe where it's being made and then sent here and installed total. I guess my question to administration is currently we have some sound baffling that's going to be going up here in the next month. Is there any pre-work that we can do in regards to this floor, maybe to speed up the process while we're waiting for it to ship, or will we have to shut the pool down again for a set period of time in order to install this new pool floor?
So, Your Worship, yes, we will have to shut the pool down to do the installation of the new floor. Bearing in mind that we have a shutdown scheduled within a few weeks, we're actually, depending on what the outcome of council is tonight, going to be modifying our shutdown schedule to minimize the impacts now. So, in other words, any repairs or maintenance work that needs to be done now that would require us shutting down the 50-meter pool, we'll take a look at that work, see what we can put off and do at the same time as the movable floor is installed. So delay as much of the work as possible, especially any work that would require changing the water level or draining any of the water. We want to keep that pool at that water level and keep the water heated until such time as we have to drain and lower the levels so that we can install the movable floor.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Tarrant?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a question for Director Roth in terms of the operation of the movable floor. How, if you could just mention the speed at which it could be moved up and down, is it something that you can, like how flexible is it in terms of getting different user groups in and out within, by hour? Director Roth?
Your Worship, Depending on the configuration, the floor itself only takes minutes to move from the lowest depth to zero depth. We've seen that in operation in other facilities such as the H2O Center in Kelowna, which has a very similar design. It only takes a few minutes. It actually takes longer for the adjacent bulkheads to be moved in to actually make a square sealed off pool area. So it doesn't actually take that long to reconfigure the pool for different user groups.
Okay. Thanks very much, Director Roth. I don't see anybody else in the queue. Is there any additional discussion or debate before I call for the vote? I don't see anybody else in the queue, so I'll call for the vote on the motion to amend the budget for the amount. Of course you can, Councillor Rice.
Why is this coming forward now instead of waiting for budget?
That was discussed at committee, and Director Roth, do you want to speak to the timelines? You just have to turn your microphone on. Or Councillor Radburn, do you?
As was stated, we really felt that 6 months to get it here. Let's get it here as soon as we can so we can increase revenue at the facility.
Director Roth?
The other factor into this was that if committee chose to continue on with the leisure center project, there would be budget implications that needed to be addressed this fall going forward, requiring additional funds for that project. So that was the other factor in terms of timing.
And Mr. Anderson has another one.
Mayor, given my understanding is that the price is fixed for the current calendar year with the devaluation of the Canadian dollar versus the euro, it's timely to get in there now.
So I think the answer is as the dollar goes down, it'll get more expensive. Contractors willing to hold the price for some time. Okay. Thanks, Mr. Anderson. 3 answers from 3 folks to 1 question. Well done. Never let it be said that we didn't waste a few words when. Any further discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn, was it all aquatics all the time at that committee meeting?
Pretty well was, except we did receive one letter from the Summerside Neighborhood Association sharing some concerns relative to playground and park space issues in their neighborhood. And that's been referred to administration for follow-up and report back to committee. Thank you, Mayor Gibbon.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I'm glad Councillor Radburn brought that back because that's very specific to basically money being spent from going into parks or park area when it gets annexed by the city. So it's a very important issue that Summerside neighborhood has brought up and will be looked at very, very good by administration.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. And Councillor McLean, you could have just about kept your microphone on. I think you're next up with the Community Safety Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I move council receive the minutes of Community Safety Committee meeting held Tuesday, August 18, 2015.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Anything we need to change before we adopt them? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. Motion carries. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I move that council, award tender T-62-552-15 for the 2015 Bear Creek slope repairs in the Wapiti Gravel to Wapiti Gravel Suppliers Division of NPA Limited in the amount of $509,888.50, excluding GST and including contingency as the lowest bidder meeting city specs. And I just want to throw a comment out there is that we've had these numbers the last few years of slopes falling down, and this is about 2 areas in our city, one on 68th Ave where our bridge is going in just to the north of it to repair, and another one by another bridge within Mississippi Park. So that's what it's related to.
Great. Thanks very much for that context, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. That motion carries. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I move Council Award T-46-552-15 for the 2015 Thermoplastic Program to AAA Stripping and Seal Coating Services in the amount of $533,310, excluding GST as the lowest bidder meeting city specs. And quickly on this one, it's just straightforward. The city does the general painting, but this is more of where they cut out the concrete in certain intersections in the city and add a filler that's warranted for 5 years and may last 7 years. And it's a solid white color.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And we've still got a few more pieces of business. Councillor McLean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. Move Council Ward T-61-552-15 for 2015 Traffic Signal Repair Program to TB Traffic Inc. in the amount of $553,317, exclusive of GST, including $50,000 contingency as a lowest bidder, meeting city specs.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I move that Council award RFP-42-552-15 to engineering consultant services for the downtown rehabilitation and streetscape upgrades to 101st Street and 101st Ave to ISL Engineering and Land Services Limited in the amount of $980,704, exclusive of GST, as the highest evaluated proponent. And I just want to speak to it quick. Basically, as council's direction for the downtown area, this is the start of the scope of work to be done downtown for everything to happen scheduled for 2016, all the way from underground to streetscape up top, which includes benches. So for this program to get passed tonight, it starts the process for next year to revitalize our downtown.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Anything else you want to highlight from that set of minutes, Councillor McLean? That's it. Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. And that'll take us to corporate services. Oh, Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. Just a note too, just to complement what Councillor McLean said. Another motion relative to this agenda item that was passed reads that committee direct administration bring back a report outlining the communication plan regarding phase 1 and 2 of the downtown rehabilitation streetscape upgrades, so that we will have that come soon, so that we can share that information with the downtown.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Radburn. I think that'll take us to Councillor Logan and the Corporate Services Committee meeting from August 18th. Councillor Logan.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move that Council receive the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting of August 18th, 2015.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. And that motion carries. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, and I would like to move that Council receive the 2015 Census Report and Population Analysis for information. I'd like to just speak to that for a moment. I think the prior set of figures that would be most current were probably the federal government census in 2011 that said we were around just barely over 55,000. Here we are in 2015 with a population of 68,556. A truly astounding increase in a handful of years. Has a fairly major impact on me because we also passed 2 municipalities. St. Albert, of course, had a growth spurt from nothing. But as a kid, Medicine Hat was always the one municipality that's way ahead of Grand Prairie and would never be passed. And Medicine Hat was the second municipality that we passed in growth, leaving us the 5th largest municipality in terms of population in the province of Alberta, urban municipality. I'd like to move that Council receive the 2015 Census Report and Population Analysis for information. There is a tremendous amount of information in there. One other thing I should mention is the breakdown of the youth in the community and the need for planning both programs and capital spending on youth.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Discussion and debate. Councillor McLean.
Mayor Gibbon, I didn't mean to interrupt Councillor Logan. It's just there's a lot of information in that census. I just want to speak to the 68,556. I remember sitting through annexation process where the other side was saying we will not meet or even come close to what we were putting down the line, and actually it far exceeded it. And I think if you see any growth of our surrounding area, it's right on our borders. So I believe this number should be really looked at by the provincial government quite aggressively and progressively in the future of how dealings are going to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan? You'll just have to, yeah, your microphone's going off with the cue there.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McLean, for the comments, because you're spot on. You threw me when I thought you were saying I gotta. What? So the next item is the tax sale. There's 3 motions handling the process for dealing with property subject to tax recovery. First one is that council approve the property subject to 2014 tax recovery notification as per attached list be offered for sale by public auction.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Logan. I believe this is an annual piece of business that the city undertakes and has undertaken for decades. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan?
Thank you, and the mayor's comments are very good. Once we actually go ahead with this, we find that there's a lot of redemption by the property owners when they realize that the land may be sold up front. The second necessary motion is that council approve the auction be held in the first floor, North Conference Room at City Hall on Friday, November 27th, 2015 at 9 a.m.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Any discussion or debate as to the time and location as proposed? I believe this meets all the public notification and advertising requirements that are set out by the Municipal Government Act. Seeing no discussion or debate, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan.
Thank you. And the third motion to do with this item is that council approve the reserve bids for the 2015 tax sale be set as the attached appendices, Appendix C.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Again, seeing nobody ringing in, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Logan, was there anything else to highlight?
Don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. That clears all of our committee business from the past couple of weeks and would take us into correspondence. We do have one item of correspondence this week, which is a letter from the Cranberry Prairie District Catholic School Board requesting the city consider participating or otherwise supporting them in the construction of the 350-seat multipurpose theater adjacent to their new junior-senior high school, which was recently announced. So that is here for council consideration. Likely would be something that we would refer either to the appropriate standing committee or to administration. But we'll leave that to the will of council. We should have a motion one way or another. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll tip my hat on this one and refer to budget talks in the fall, or do you want to go right to a committee?
I think maybe a committee might be more appropriate because there isn't a specific budget number yet, and so that might be a part of the dialogue or discussion.
Yeah, I'll refer to whichever committee is appropriate by administration to send it to.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. Councillor Rice, I heard your question. There was that one other piece of business from the corporate services, the unaudited financial statements. Those come quarterly and are received just by the committee. It's the audited financial statements that would come to council. So that was our item of correspondence, and that would take us to delegation business. We had, of course, 2 delegations tonight. The first of which was the presentation regarding the allocation of MR. We need, at minimum, a motion to receive that presentation for information, or if council would like to take any other action, like directing administration bring forward a concept or I guess any other direction that council might have, now would be the time to do that. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a question for administration, if they could explain the process for deciding how the MR allocation sort of process went and how it was decided that, in one instance it was in camera, in one instance it was public, and if we could have that explanation.
Sure. I see our administration team getting organized, so I'll send this first to Director Miyagi, who will, I'm sure, work with his team, Mr. Walton, to answer that question. Director Miyagi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have Senior Planner Dan Walton here. I'll get him to explain the process that they went through.
Thanks very much, Mr. Walton.
Your Worship, I guess the first issue is that there's no clearly defined process. We've done this twice. Each time the process was slightly different. There's no real substantial reason why, I don't think. In the first instance, the request for council direction was made to a council committee of the whole in camera. The reason why it was done like that is the Section 10.4 of the Municipal Government Act, which makes reference to MR in all neighborhoods, including industrial, says that council may consider waiving that or revising that. But again, the reference was to council. So in the first instance, for Trader Ridge, this was taken to council committee of the whole. In the second instance, it was taken to the Community Growth Committee, mostly because after the first event, there was some discussion, I guess, between council and administration with respect to the number of workshops, in-camera sessions, and that sort of thing. And so at that time, I think it was decided that the course of action would be to take it to Community Growth Committee, and then Community Growth Committee would make some recommendation and pass it on to council for a some form of direction. And again, the part of the process in general is, in both cases, the city administration had received applications to adopt outline plans. In both cases, they were like, one was industrial, one was combination of, one was industrial and commercial, the second one was purely commercial. In both cases, they were recommending or they were asking for no municipal reserve, and therefore the intent of administration, or my intent, was to go to council and ask for your direction. And in both cases, the reason why there was no participation by the applicant wasn't because I was deliberately trying to leave them out for any nefarious reason. It was simply that the purpose of me coming to the council or committee was for me to get direction. The process is that council makes its decision after the public hearing, when it's making a decision on the actual adoption of the outline plan, by bylaw, adoption of the zoning, those sorts of things. So the final decision of council was intended, or is always intended, to be made when council is actually giving consideration to second and third reading of these statutory plans. And therefore the process was, and clearly we do need to refine it somewhat, the process is that this was administration looking for council's direction, not getting a decision out of council, which again comes after the public hearing when council's considering second and third reading. Thank you, Your Worship.
No, thanks very much. Actually, that's helpful context and something that I wasn't aware of, that this decision essentially hasn't been closed off at this point. And if council gave direction at this point, then that would just be included in that outline plan when it comes forward. Is that right, Mr. Walton?
Through the mayor, that is the way, I guess, the direction was to administration. So that is essentially that's direction to me as the project manager for this file. And therefore, moving this forward to council at some point, then that direction kind of informs me of what council's intentions are. And I guess
you'd work with the applicant on that basis of what the
working with the applicant on it, and and ideally coming up with a solution that satisfies both administration and the applicant. And at the end of the day, obviously, it needs to satisfy council, because council makes the decision on these matters. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Walton. Councillor Rice.
Okay, the delegation's point that if we accepted cash in lieu, we could use that money to develop parks in an area where they would be greater utilized. So if we wish to do that, say we would accept cash in lieu, what I got kind of confused as to what process we would use.
Maybe Mr. Welton can shed some light on what the typical process is, because this wouldn't be the first time where the city would accept cash in lieu. Mr. Welton, what happened?
Your Worship, if there was a decision at, say, with second and third reading, that council wanted to adopt an outline plan with no land, with the intention that money in lieu of municipal reserve would be provided, when the applicant starts making subdivision applications, that is when the city starts collecting the money in lieu of municipal reserve. So normally the city gets municipal reserve when the applicant starts subdividing the land. If they're not establishing MR by land, they start paying the money in lieu of municipal reserve when they start subdividing. So it would become a condition of a subdivision, and typically a quarter section like this might get subdivided over 5 or 10 years. So as individual subdivisions occur, the city would say, either give us X amount of money in lieu of municipal reserve or defer it until later on. So the money would actually be collected during the subdivision approval process.
Okay, but he would know ahead of time that this were the rules. That's one question, and I have two actually. Isn't that a fairly large reserve request?
Sorry, Councillor, just to clarify, in terms of the land area, the size that we're talking about? Okay.
Your Worship, I guess to answer the first question, yes, the idea is that the outline plan and the outline plan process would firm up what the council's intentions are with respect to land or money in lieu of land. And with respect to the second one, the requirements of the Act say that the municipality may require an applicant to provide up to 10% of land as municipal reserve. So in this particular case, it's a quarter section, which is usually about 64.5 hectares, and therefore the 10% of that would be 6.4 hectares or about 15 acres.
So since it says up to 10, do we always take 10? Has that been our practice, or were we just particularly greedy?
Through the mayor, if there is residential, I looked into when I presented this to the committee. I did a background on the instances, like how much municipal reserve was provided as land and in cash in a number of outline plans. If it is residential, it seems to be always the case that the city takes 10% as land, if it's residential. In some cases, say like the Vision West outline plan, which is out past Best Buy and Future Shop, in that particular case, because that was a combination of commercial and industrial, the city requested 5% money in lieu of land and 5% land. So it varies, but it is, if the city is taking on industrial or residential development, the city has always taken as close to 10% land as it can get. For commercial and industrial, it varies a little bit. There have been very few instances where the city has completely waived it, but there have been a few.
Okay, so this has no residential.
This has no residential, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tarrant?
Thank you, Mayor. Given a question for administration. So under the current direction from council to have to accept the land, the full 10%, in the absence of Parks Master Plan, which identifies a MR space for that, or any other plans that document what that space would be, what do you take into your negotiations with what that MR should be? Is it just a blank piece of land? Like, how does the developer know, what they should be developing or proposing with that MR?
Through the mayor, I think in this particular case, the applicants have indicated that they kind of don't know. In a typical residential subdivision, let's say a residential outline plan, the Parks Master Plan won't say this is exactly what the park space has to look like. it's a negotiation between the city and the developer, because the developer clearly has a certain expectation for the type of neighborhood he wants to develop, the look of it, the layout of the streets and that sort of thing. And so administration and the developer negotiate what kind of MR spaces the city is going to get, that we think basically best satisfy the needs of the residents of the city. In commercial and industrial quarter section like this, if it is council's direction that land be provided, then I would expect that sort of negotiation would occur in the same way.
Councillor Tarrant, anything further on that? Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a quick question, Dan. Well, maybe, overall, mostly you're breaking it up: industrial, commercial, residential. Yeah. Overall, the city usually takes a good percentage of land. Yes or no? Throughout majority.
In most outline plan cases, we take some land. Most of the plans that we have a residential component, and therefore most of them take lots of land, or almost the full 10%. But even the ones that are non-residential, some have taken some land.
And I'm just gonna finish off with, I know a Trader Park was brought up and about cash and and it's gone. The cash is here, and but actually you can go into some industrial and commercial areas, and county likes to build them on their border, and there's no transit or sidewalks or anything, and there's a difference between urban and rural. And maybe with council's direction and community about direction and development, and I think that's very important. So I don't know where this is going to go, but I am looking forward. There's
we don't have a motion.
Yeah, we don't yet, but questions I'm going to throw at. We're not looking at some of the connecting the dots between urban and rural in certain ways. So, I mean, basically, if you wanted to go walking or have a dog park or whichever, there's lots of outline area. There would be nothing in this area. Yes or no? If it was passed before.
Your Worship, this quarter section is on the west side of 116th Street, essentially between 116th Street and the airport. And so that quarter section, the quarter section to the south are both designated for commercial and industrial. Actually, this quarter section is currently allocated half residential, but they're proposing that it be all commercial and industrial. But so in the absence of municipal reserve, there would be nothing on this side of the creek, or this side of 116th Street. On the opposite side of 116th Street, we are expecting commercial and residential development, and those quarter sections back onto the creek, and certainly the opportunity for some connectivity between areas and the creek would be a beneficial thing in whatever fashion gets worked out, if such a thing were to occur.
My question was answered.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yeah, this is actually unfortunate because I recognize the kind of in limbo that things are at now. My suggestion, I won't make a motion yet, but my suggestion to see if it would be in order would be that we refer this matter to an in-camera committee of the whole meeting that would, for the purpose of providing direction to administration to negotiate further with the developer. We've kind of so far said 4-4 vote that we're not going to accept cash in lieu for everything, but there might be some other, something else might be palatable or be supported by council, and I think that would be the forum where we have that discussion prior to Dan working with them again. So I'll make that a motion.
Okay.
Referral of this matter to a council committee, the whole in-camera session, to provide further direction to administration in this matter.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn, and certainly with respect to negotiations between the city and any other entity, and items dealing with land are both appropriate items for an in-camera session. So that would certainly is in order. So we'll accept that motion, and we can discuss and debate that motion, which would get us to the point of resolving the sort of in limbo status. I do have a question for Mr. Welton, two actually. Are there Are there other, what is the city of what are municipalities allowed to use MR for?
Your worship,
Sorry, maybe put it a different way. What are the limits on what the city can use MR for? That's
it's generally defined in the Municipal Government Act. I can't quote it line and verse. Park space, schools, open space, buffers, those sorts of things.
things that are for municipal purpose, like public works yards, fire halls, other municipal facilities.
Those through the mayor, Mr. Mayor, those items are generally not identified for municipal reserve. In many cases, what a municipality could do is remove the MR designation of a piece of municipal reserve land for the purposes of building a fire hall or a police station or something like that. That is something that obviously is legally possible.
So if the city had the land, then they could remove the MR designation to allow it to be used for other purposes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And the other question that I had was just in terms of past practice, and you described what I would sum up, that the city would essentially, if the city chooses to take the MR, take cash in lieu of MR, that the municipality receives that financial contribution over a period of time as the development of as the development happens, as subdivision happens. Is there any established practice of what percentages that comes in? Is it a 50% with phase one and 50% with the last phase, or is it? Is there an established practice for that?
Through the mayor, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe that we have an established practice for it. It is likely very case. I was going to say case sensitive, but that's not the right word. Case.
Put it in all caps if we had to. An outline plan area might subdivide over the course of 2 or 3 years. It might take 8 or 10 years. The city isn't necessarily obligated to take the land with each phase of subdivision. The city isn't necessarily obligated to take cash in lieu at that time. The city could defer the MR to future subdivisions, and maybe with an expectation that by the time the neighborhood is close to fully subdivided, the value of the land is higher because the money in lieu of municipal reserve is based on the appraised value of the land. So even if phasing is occurring over a 5-year or 10-year period, the city isn't necessarily obligated to take the land with each phase. It could choose to defer the money to later phases and take it later as well. Thank you. Or is it possible to do the opposite and to front end it?
It could be possible. That's a little more iffy because if somebody's subdividing off 10% of the land, is it reasonable to take 100% of the money in lieu with the first small subdivision? So may or may not be legal in those particular cases. We would have to
feasible. Okay. No, fair enough. Councillor Rice.
I got kind of lost in the deluge. I'd asked if one wanted to make a motion that we would accept cash in lieu, what sort of motion would be appropriate? I don't recall having got an answer.
Sorry, Councillor Rice. I'm sorry I didn't. My error. If you did say that, I'm sorry I didn't catch it.
I believe the motion now is to put this back to committee.
Council committee of the whole rather than a committee of council, so all of council would be able to do it in context of an in-camera discussion.
In a timely fashion?
Whenever we can get all of us together. I think often we're the ones that make it difficult to put together a council committee of the whole. Okay. And my apologies, Councillor Rice, if I did miss that question. Councillor Logan.
Thank you. With regards to the motion, I would caution that there is a well set out procedure for handling these things. In all my years on council, I can't remember any time the council has sort of huddled up in advance to see what they're going to do about whether they're going to take cash in lieu of land and what proportion it's been. It's always been something that's been brought forward by administration in proper process to the proper committee, which then constructs a motion that goes on to council. I think we're treading on really dangerous ground in changing a portion of this decision-making process in a manner that I don't believe the provincial legislation saw councils doing. Please, let's not start caucusing behind closed doors when there's an existing process for this.
Thanks, Councillor Logan. With respect, I think you're exactly right. There is a process that has been followed in this instance, absolutely, that followed exactly as you described through committee and then to council. I think what we're hearing is the applicant asking us to reconsider council's vote. And so I think that's the basis of why we're here. Thanks, Councillor Logan. Councillor Thiessen?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bill. I echo your sentiments, Dwight. I feel like to make a motion to sit in camera is a little questionable. I have to apologize to our delegates who came in because I wasn't at that council meeting, and I know exactly what we're talking about here. And I was surprised that it didn't go through based on the committee business, as I sat on the committee. And I think my vote might have swayed it. But now I'm looking back on it, and so I have a question for administration. Now, in the original recommendation, it says that we consider money in lieu of municipal reserve to be acceptable in the West Green Park area if the area is developed without residential dwellings. And following that, on our June 16th minutes, we have some residential, we have the current future land use, we have residential there, now a proposed future land use industrial. So my question is to administration, have we changed the zoning of that area yet, or is it still as stands?
Through the mayor, council has not changed the zoning. It has not changed the area structure plan. Part of the process for the West Green Outline Plan, the applicants have proposed to amend the Northwest Area Structure Plan. As I indicated previously, half of that site is currently slated for residential, the other half slated for industrial. The reason why the motion in the CGC report was written in that manner was because the intention, certainly my intention, was direction from council, and that the motion was not council making a decision that, or sort of pre-signaling a decision that it was in support of the area going to all industrial. That is a decision that council makes basically after the public hearing. So the idea that the motion was consider money in lieu of municipal reserve if there's no residential is because I was trying to make sure that council was clear that they are not making the decision at this point to have no industrial. That is part of this, the legal process for the adoption of an area structure plan. It was to give me direction in the, to go forward, to go back to the applicants to negotiate something that would then come back for your council decision on whether or not you guys were going to eliminate the municipal reserve or eliminate the residential in favor of commercial and industrial.
Thank you very much. That clears that up for me.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll just be speaking to the motion. There's nothing wrong with the motion. We had incidents here we were speaking about this was a little bit different than this process, and maybe the process could be changed. We're asking to reevaluate. Some development over the years has gone different in the city, and this council is looking at different things and how it's going to look in the future. And there's nothing wrong with getting together and talking, because I believe Trader Ridge, that happened. And you know what? The developer was all happy. So to say that something could go wrong, not necessarily something could come out of this and everybody could be happy. You never know. So I'm in favor of the motion.
Thanks, Councilor McLean. Councilor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'd just like to reiterate, this would be in camera session to talk about direction to administration. We would have to come out of camera in the public forum to make a decision. But I'm looking for a forum to move this forward. I think we've eliminated one option for administration by vote, by a tie vote that's against. But I think we have to look at other options so that we can partner and move this thing forward. So yes, it has to come into public, but I do think that introduction discussion would be useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Redburn. I see Councillor Terrence also in the queue. I'll just say I agree with that point. I'll support the motion on the basis of this is an unfortunate position to be in where we are not providing the clarity, I guess, that's desired by the development. I certainly don't want to leave any of our developers in that sort of situation, and I think having a dialogue about this and about what council's priorities are and what our desires are will help move this forward, and then those decisions ultimately, as has been laid out, will be made in the context of the outline plan when it came forward. So I certainly will be supporting the motion. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I will be supporting Councillor Radburn's motion as well. While I was disappointed in the outcome of the initial vote, I recognize that it was the will of council, and I think that the developer, the applicant, mentioned that there is a gap right now, and we didn't provide a clear picture of what we would like that MR to be used for those that supported having the land there. So I think having an in-camera forum is very appropriate given the land nature of it, and I will be supporting it because of that.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Logan.
There are actually two processes available to us that don't endanger us under the Municipal Government Act. One is to simply have the standing committee that handles this matter deal with it again and have the additional information brought forward, open it in public where it should be, with everybody able to speak to it and make the decision there. Time-honored process, that's how we usually do it. The other possibility is indeed to take it to council and committee of the whole, but not in camera, in public. And the only reason to do that would be that so every member of council could vote on that. I don't particularly think that's a useful one, but it does exist. But please be careful. We're stepping on the edge of things that we shouldn't be stepping on.
Thanks, Councillor Logan. And I just want to clarify, because the suggestion that you make that council may be offside of the MGA, I believe from what was described by Mr. Welton, even within this term, we've had a situation where council has given direction to administration in an in-camera fashion on another development. And so, and the applicant recognized that that was possible as well, and I believe that we fully have that ability. I can appreciate a preference for conducting business in the public and the dialogue in the public, but as has been noted, any vote to support any recommendation that would come forward out of that would have to be done in the public forum as well. So I appreciate the principle on which you're standing, but I do want to clarify that even within this term and on where all council members were involved in the dialogue, that has happened in camera previously. I don't see anyone else in the queue. Sorry, Councillor Logan. Go ahead.
Not need to push that at all, but just in the way that you're foreseeing this happening, would the applicants involved in this project and those sorts of people be allowed, that are already involved in the process, be allowed to sit in it while we're constructing our judgment behind closed doors? Like, will they have any chance to affect the decision making?
Typically, when council works in camera, that is council and administration, and council giving direction to administration. I mean, essentially, we're telling our employees how we wish them to negotiate with an outside party. So, in my experience, it is either it does not happen or it happens very rarely, where we ask the outside party to be involved in the discussion when we're giving direction to our administration. So I guess that was a long way to say probably not.
No.
Yeah. Councillor Radburn.
So, trying to recognize Councillor Logan's perspective, would it be better to have direct administration to work with the applicant with an alternative in terms of MR in that area, and then bring that to committee and then council as a recommendation? Like, would that be better?
certainly up to council. One thing I would say is that the challenge maybe from administration's perspective is we'd be sending them out there without any marching orders. So if I was the other party, I would say, so what do you think council wants? And if I was administration, I'd say, I'm not really sure. So I wouldn't, I would recommend that one way or another council gives administration clear direction so that when they work with the other party, that they know what the will of council is. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I won't be supporting the motion. I think that Councillor Radburn's last comments, there's some substance there, and direction could be given to administration to come back with opportunities, possibilities, ideas, however you want to word it, from and with the applicant to what to do with the MRs. So, and I don't think it should be done in camera. I think this has already gone to committee. I obviously didn't. I was in favor of the cash, and I think that this now needs to come in a public discussion with administration direction from council.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Clayton. Any further discussion or debate? Councillor Radburn.
No amendments?
There's nothing additional coming forward, then the motion on the floor stands. And I don't see anybody else in the queue then. So I'll call for the vote on Councillor Radburn's motion. And just to clarify, the effect of that would be council getting together in a committee of the whole fashion to give direction to administration. And then administration would work off of that direction to negotiate on the city's behalf with the landowner and bring back the results of that negotiation for council adoption in a public forum. Councillor Clayton.
Okay, I'll take a stab at amending this. I would amend the motion. The motion right now is go to committee of the whole in a public format, in camera? All right, so I'll amend the motion to be committee of the whole as a public format.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. That motion is in order. I will strongly encourage council to think about in what scenario one party would have a public meeting to discuss their strategy over how they negotiate with another party. I can't think of any sort of business situation where that would happen, or any other situation. And so I would really encourage council to defeat this amendment and support the original motion as it was intended, so we can give our administration clear direction on what our priorities are and how we can clear this up to the benefit of the development and the city. Councillor Logan.
Thank you. I would urge council support Councillor Clayton's motion. I think it's extraordinarily prudent. I think that the process already of dealing with this development has happened already, partly in the public purview. It's appropriate that it continue in public purview. It's easy enough. We sit around this table and deal with all kinds of thorny issues of taxation and all of the things that the standing committees handle, and we are able to do all of that in public. I see no reason why we can't develop the position we want to put in front of the applicants in this particular thing and tell our administration to do it easily in public. I really think that's the prudent course.
Thanks, Councillor Logan. Any further discussion or debate? Okay, so I don't see anything further, and so yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure we clarify. So the one that we'll be calling the vote on is Councillor Clayton's amendment, which would essentially change the council committee of the whole from a in-camera session to a public session. So that's the essence. Councillor Clayton's motion was to amend Councillor Radburn's original. So we're calling for the vote on Councillor Clayton's amendment, which would see the issue referred to a in-public council committee of the whole meeting. I'll call for the vote now. Thank you. The motion to amend does not carry. So back to Councillor Radburn's original motion. Is there any further discussion or debate on that original motion as proposed? Does everybody feel like they've had a kick? cat on that one. Okay, I don't see anybody ringing in, so I will call for the vote. Thank you. And that motion does carry. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'd like to make a follow-up motion. One of the other concerns that was brought up was in terms of the process and the clarity there. So I would like to refer to the appropriate committee that we look at the MR allocation process and have put some more process or put some more clarity around how that takes place, and so that developers in the future can have certainty about what's going to take place during the entire process.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. So motion to refer the process for future instances to committee so we can develop something that's a little bit clearer for everyone. Thanks very much. Any discussion or debate on that motion of referral? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. That wasn't the only delegation that we had today. We also had Mr. Dressel, who was here to identify a couple of issues of concern. I note that Mr. Dressel has already given his contact information to our city staff, but we should receive his presentation for information and perhaps some direction to administration. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council direct administration to follow up with Nick, the gentleman who presented, to gather further information on the issues that he has shared and to bring a report back to the appropriate committee following that.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I believe that handles all of our delegation business. We had no notices of motion, and so I will just ask if we have any external reports from any of our agencies, boards, and committees. I always like to start with the AUMA since they're at the top of the list, and also because it starts with Councillor Rice. Councillor Rice.
Yes, it's been very busy. I met with 32 of the new MLAs, including 3 cabinet ministers, Minister of Energy, Service Alberta, and Agriculture. I was also very pleased that the government is proceeding ahead with the amendments to the Municipal Government Act. Met with the Alberta Municipal Districts and Counties Executive, where we have so far hammered out 17 more positions we agree on. So that will be proceeding. It's been busy, but it's been successful.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. I'll just ask this side of the table if we have any external reports. I had a chance to ask that side of the table. Do we have any external reports from our agencies, boards, or commissions other than AUMA? If not, then we'll start Council Roundtable with Councillor Thiessen, since he's right next to Councillor Rice. Keep up with that pattern. Councillor Thiessen.
Sounds good by me. I guess I started this meeting. I can start the round table, right? So I had a not so busy couple of weeks. I do want to highlight a couple events that I went to. Just going to get the dates here clear. I believe on August the 11th, yes, I was at the Camp Gila Heart luncheon. We received a presentation and sort of a tour of the grounds and the stuff that they do with the kids out there. If people don't know, City of Grande Prairie is a supporter in funding to the Camp Gila Heart people. I was privy to a delicious home-cooked lunch by the kids themselves and served by the kids themselves, as well as a tear-jerking testimony from one of the longtime councillors there. And I brought back some artwork to beautify our council back chambers over here. So if all the council members want to take a look at that, that would be awesome. It was drawn by the kids of the Camp Gila Heart as well. Of course, I was at the census announcement with several other councillors in attendance on August the 13th. And one big highlight of an event, I'm going to go forward and then backwards, but today we unveiled, we unveiled or did the sod turning and blessing for the new Catholic school with several members of council there in the Royal Oaks area. It was a good moment. Anytime we get to open a school, it's always a chance to rejoice and celebrate that our kids are going to have the class space that they need. Now, the big highlight of my 2 weeks here was on August 20th. I came back for the Montrose Cultural Center Community Appreciation Night. As we had a whole variety of games, carnival games, face painters. We had people touring the site. We had an outdoor movie that came indoor because the weather didn't want to accommodate us for that. What a brilliant event. It was really wonderful. I wish the weather was better for it, but big props and kudos to all the organizers. I know David Ollinger, our communications director, had a big hand in that, as well as Rhonda Matheson at the Montrose Cultural Center, as well as members of the library, the art gallery, Esquires, and our own team from the city of Grand Prairie. Put together such a fabulous event that finished off with the live action showing of the 2015 movie Cinderella. I was proud to host and MC that event, and kudos again to all the hard work from all of our partners in and around the Montrose Cultural Center within the city.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Logan.
Last couple of weeks have been actually reasonably quiet for me. Just one event that I did want to mention was the visit of grandson and our expedition in the loving arms of Councillor O'Toole out to the Curry Dinosaur Museum. Very close to being complete, and pretty soon we're going to have the opportunity to see it all, but Councillor O'Toole did a really great job of showing us around, and really appreciated it, and I wanted to publicly acknowledge it.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I'll just lead off with Councillor Logan there. My children actually had a tour with the Taekwondo Club of the Dinosaur Museum, Curry. It's not open to the public yet, but they are doing showings for children in certain groups. So someday I'll get in there and see it. So good job. A couple I'll speak to is the Mission. I was at August 19th at the Mission Neighborhood Association 3rd Annual Barbecue. This is the second one I attended for that one. The first one I had a kid that had to leave early for other issues, but I was very glad to be there, because when you open up the package about getting involved in the community and the connections, they actually had a magnet in there, crime prevention, and report a drug house or call this number. You know, a lot of people don't know when they move to the city and they're brand new. As we know, the population changes. So I was glad to open that up, besides seeing all the other connections you can make within the neighborhood. And I thank Mission Neighborhood for that. And if you haven't had a magnet, get a hold of crime prevention, because there's the appropriate numbers on there, and you can just make a phone call and help your community greatly by making a phone call anonymously. The other one I want to speak to is the Senseman announcement on August 13th in the city. It was very dramatic. No, it had on the screens of 55,000 going up. I thought it was well done. But it is big news for our city. It shows that we are growing, and we are going to have needs down the road, and how we prosper and make us stronger. And I think that sense of now is going to show itself down the road for our city. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I just want to highlight both the Mission Neighborhood Association Summer Barbecue and the Highland Park banner unveiling / family barbecue. Just want to recognize the leaders, the executives of those associations for their good work in connecting their community and becoming active neighborhood associations. So my kudos to them. And the other is just a reminder to everyone that's watching. We had 3 exhibitions open at the Art Gallery of Grand Prairie on August 13th. They're spectacular, and I would encourage people to take a time to take a look. Thank you.
If anybody wanted to take a check to the Art Gallery, would the Art Gallery accept it? If that was... Okay, I thought they might. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just want to highlight a couple of events with the neighborhood associations that have been mentioned. Wonderful event. It was great to see a lot of neighbors out and about. I'll share just one story. I had a chance in my own neighborhood association, Highland Park. I was chatting with somebody who had just been in Grand Prairie for just under a year, had moved here from Ontario, and had immediately got plugged in with the neighborhood association. She now sits on the board. And the neighborhood association was her sort of connection to the community, and she made a lot of friends through there and got connected to other groups within the city. So I think it shows the success of the neighborhood associations, and I think this is, the goal of council when they set them up some years ago, and I think that it's continuing to have great success. I also want to give kudos to the team, the legislative services team that conducted the census. Fantastic. We've all heard the numbers, and it's great to see we have a young, thriving population, and so huge kudos to everyone involved in the census, and it's great. Looking forward to see what else comes from those numbers and how we can continue planning for our young, vibrant community.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I just wanted to say that I'm back from holidays. I haven't had an opportunity to attend anything in the last few weeks. However, the census was very exciting, and I was glad to see the report. It was very thorough, and there's a lot of great information there going forward. And other than that, I'm just glad to be back. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Welcome back. Councillor Rice, back to you. Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. So I'll just choose to highlight a couple of items that where there were no council members in attendance. The first was the graduation ceremony for the Aboriginal Job Shadowing Program. This is a program the City of Grand Prairie has been involved in for probably 7 to 8 years. One of the founding partners. The program matches youth from some of the surrounding First Nations Aboriginal communities with job opportunities, job shadowing opportunities, of course, here in Grand Prairie. They will leave their home communities. They will come to GPRC and get a college experience by living in the dorms while they're doing their job shadowing. And for a number of weeks, they go out and work with private sector employers, public sector employers like the City of Grand Prairie, to shadow different departments and see the job opportunities that are there in an effort to inform them about what opportunities there are for them in life, and also answer some questions on what they need in terms of educational qualifications and skills. I think this is another one of those maybe sometimes overlooked programs, underappreciated and overlooked programs that have a significant impact on the lives of young people in a population group that certainly can use that sort of support. And so I'm very proud the City of Grand Prairie, under various mayors and under various administration, has been a consistent partner in this program. And I want to give my kudos and congratulations to those that help organize it, and those employers, private sector employers in particular, that choose to participate, because there is a commitment to take on a student, but they're doing something very worthwhile. The other item that I wanted to bring to Council's attention was that I had an opportunity to go and greet the National Research Council of Canada board, who are here in Grand Prairie doing some local outreach in an effort to strengthen their relationships with local entrepreneurs and Grand Prairie institutions. I understand they're also looking, they have some staff positions that they're looking to recruit to Grand Prairie for. So this was after the census. It was certainly a pleasure to be able to share with them about the rapid growth in Grand Prairie and the nature of our community as a regional hub, and certainly encourage them that if there was a place for them to be, Grand Prairie was the place. Was that place? One of the board members asked an interesting question. Said, "What's your, just before you go, what's your vision of Grand Prairie? 5 to 7 years down the road?" And it caught me off guard. And so I guess that means that my answer was as honest as it could be. And I said that I hoped that we'd be the first community in Alberta that successfully bridged the divide between a urban center and a rural area, and a truly integrated region that operates successfully in whatever sort of form that might be. And I think I said a truly cosmopolitan urban center in the heart of a productive and important rural area. And the response from one of the other council members was that Grand Prairie is already a cosmopolitan urban center, because the reception that they had when they arrived at the hotel in Grand Prairie, the reception that they had at all the facilities, and their interactions with people in the community made them feel that they're in a cosmopolitan center. So certainly we've got one part of that down, but I know we're never satisfied, and there's always more work to do. So, but it was a pleasure to welcome them here to Grand Prairie, a national group like that. And with that, I think I'll call our meeting adjourned.